enjoyed Nikki's children's moment. And I could see that she was definitely thinking about the title of this sermon is How Not to Keep a Secret. So this passage, this Bible text that I'm looking at today, it's from John 4. It's one of my favorites, the woman at the well. And it's what my Sunday school class was talking about before we got caught up with Christmas. But the story is so densely packed, you kind of have to read the whole chapter. And there are some big themes in there about what spirit is, and how much it matters that she's not even Jewish, that she can get the gospel. And of course, I will remind you, in the story, Jesus stops, he and the disciples are cutting through enemy territory. They've got to get from one Jewish enclave to another, and so they cut through Samaria. And the Samaritans and the Jews are two people divided by a common religion. And so it really is kind of enemy territory. They don't like each other. And Jesus stops there at the stroke of noon. The disciples all go into town to buy some food, and here comes this woman by herself to get water. I have been to Jacob's Well, and the day I was there, it was in July, it was 100 degrees by 8 o'clock in the morning. So a woman is going to carry enough water for her household, probably going to carry it on her head, it might weigh 40 or 50 pounds. Why would she come in the heat of the day? Well, there's an answer for that. The other women in the town hated her so much that it was easier for her to come in the heat and sweat rather than deal with the other women in that town. You remember Jesus and her getting into a discussion, and he says to her, he said, go tell your husband. And she says, I don't have a husband. And he says, you spoke rightly when you said that. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. And she is shocked. And she goes off to town to tell people about this prophet, this Messiah. And she says, basically, art thou the Christ? Are you the Christ? And in kind of passive Greek, he says, yeah, I am. So I'm going to start up in 27. There's a whole lot of spiritual import in the first 26 verses, but for them to jump in verse 27. Just then his disciples came. They went into town about lunch. Just then his disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman. But no one said, what do you want? Or why are you speaking with her? See, their questions would be aimed at Jesus in that culture, not the woman. Not the woman's fault. He's talking to some woman off by himself, and that's a no-no in that culture. Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the city, and she said to the people, in the Bible language it says she said to the men, like the women weren't talking to her. But she went and she said to the men of that town, come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he? Isn't that interesting? This is the first real witness in the Gospel of John to people who don't know Christ as the Messiah, that Christ is the Messiah. Other than the disciples talking to each other about who this man is, this is the first person to really talk to a crowd of people about Jesus as Messiah. And it's a notorious woman, and she's not even Jewish. And she's leading the way. But look at her witness that she bears. He cannot be the Messiah, can he? Well, that's a good sell, isn't it? Do you think a salesperson is going to make a lot of positive sales contacts with that kind of? You wouldn't want to buy some encyclopedias, would you? That's not how we sell. You know how we sell because you see infomercials on TV. You've got the ShamWow and you've got the OxyClean, and it makes all your whites white, it makes your brights bright, and it cleans everything. Stuff you didn't even know was dirty gets cleaned with my product. You know that kind of pitch. But this woman has got a weak pitch. And I will tell you, I think the reason it succeeds is A, the product, and B, she's putting just a little bit of herself into that pitch. They left the city and were on their way in. And I'll read a little bit more of that later. But you know, and I talked about it at Larry E's funeral. My kids have heard me say, every job on this planet, every job you will ever have is a sales position. The first job I had outside of my own family A cowboy hired a bunch of junior high kids to pull tumbleweeds out of a fence and dig out a ditch. There had been a dust storm in West Texas, and it had filled in the ditch. And so the next time it rained, if it did rain again, it was going to flood that ditch. And so he had a bunch of boys out there with shovels. I think he may have paid us 80 cents an hour. The minimum wage was $2.40. But anyway, so I was out there. And you know, I discovered it. That's one of the first things I learned about work. Every job is a sales job. I wasn't in that ditch 10 minutes before I realized my job was to sell the boss that I was worthy of a higher level, that that Joe Harker was put on this earth for more than digging out ditches. You know? Every job is a sales position, and our instinct is to say, I don't like sales, I don't want to be in sales. But the fact of the matter is, you are. When you proposed and they accepted, that was a sales job, wasn't it? Her witness seems weak, it seems wounded. But you know what? It got the job done. Because God needed her there with her weak witness to turn the whole town towards Christ, or at least the men. Turn this whole crowd of people who were anti-Jew and probably anti-her. But that was what was needed in that moment. See, the reason that God chose to work through her, I believe, is because she had nothing to lose. See, if that had been you or me there, we'd be embarrassed. Well, what if they don't like me? Well, what if they think I'm a fool? What if they think I'm a clown? Well, they already thought what they thought about her. I remember driving, my family was going through the wrong part of town in a major city, and I was quite small. And my mother saw a woman on the street corner and said, I think that's a woman of questionable virtue. And I remember my father saying, I don't think there's any question about her virtue. But you know, it's the people with nothing to lose. It's the people who there's no question about their virtue or their skills or their worthiness. They've got the courage. Janis Joplin used to sing that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And so why is it a shock to us that it's the outcasts that turn to Jesus? It's the outcasts, it's the notorious women who've got the courage to speak up. They got nothing to lose. She can't even go get water with the other women in town because they'll probably throw rocks and do worse to her if she showed up. But that's who Jesus can use because she's got power in the middle of her weakness. I want to tell you just a couple of stories, not about me being an effective witness, but by other people I watched to be an effective witness. And at the time, you never know it's going to be something until after it's done and the episode's passed, and you say, hey, a thing just happened there. I think God just worked there. It's a God sign. And the first one is my brother. He worked in telecommunications, the telecom corridor in Dallas. He worked for this company. Remember back in the 90s when you used to get software on a CD? And you plug it in, you put the CD in your computer and nothing happens? So you call the 1-800 number? My brother's company was the 1-800 number that you call. They had 1,800 cubicles in this giant, massive cube farm. I think it may have been an aircraft hangar or something like that. But all these cubicles, 1,800 employees. And my brother was a manager of one of the groups. And they had to give every employee access to the software that they were trying to problem solve on. They wanted you to take it home and get used to it and be ready to solve problems. The trouble was, some of the software was cool. Some of it was video games. And these CDs they had for the employees would go home with them and they'd never come back. And they put my brother in charge of making them come back. And I will tell you what he did. He got the most sticky Avery labels that they made. And he printed on every one of them in Gothic font, "Thou shalt not steal." And he stuck them on every single case and had them in the bin so the employees could come and get the video game or the spreadsheet software or the word processing software, and they'd take it home. And you know what? Those employees, they'd bring it right back. It didn't stay on the coffee table, didn't stay in their computer forever after. They'd come back the next day. And the funny thing was, employee theft of CDs went to zero. The month that he did the 1,800 people borrowing in CDs and bringing them back in their own time, not one person kept a CD out of 1,800 people. And it was not a religious workplace. It was a very secular workplace. There were lots of Hindus from India. There were a lot of Islamists from Turkey who were working in Dallas. There were a lot of pagans and even some Satanists. You know what? Every one of them brought their CD back. Somehow when it says, "Thou shalt not steal," even if you're not a Christian, even if you've never read the Bible, somehow you know that's about God. There were no complaints. It stayed, nobody for 3 months, for a quarter, nobody stole a CD. A vice president saw it and said, "Oh, we can't have that. That's mixing religion in our workplace, and we don't want to be that kind of a workplace." They'd take those stickers off the CD and find some other way to do it. And he said, "I have showed you what works. If you don't like what works, you're going to have to do it yourself." And just talk back to the vice president of the company. And they put somebody else in charge of scraping the little stickers off, and thefts went right back to where they'd been before. But you know what? People at that company didn't know my brother's last name, but all 1,800 people at that company called my brother Deacon Dan after that. They heard that he was a deacon at the Christian church in Irving, and he carried that. And Bible studies started. He didn't lead the Bible studies. He probably didn't go to the Bible studies. But people felt comfortable talking about their faith at work because of what my brother did in his spare time. Anyway, so see, that's what works. It's not a great sermon. I don't know if my brother spoke in 5 sentences strung together in the last 20 years, but it's the way you live. You know how not to keep a secret? Be yourself. And let that part of you that's got Jesus, let that be out there too. And share it with people. And the other story is about my father. Minister of many years. In retirement, he was living where I was serving a church in Richardson, Texas. And Dad did a social experiment. He got U.S. Toy Company or one of these places. They got little wooden crosses on a lanyard. Not the little bitty ones, but the little bit bigger ones. 4 or 5 inches tall. You can buy them. They're probably like $8 or $9, maybe $15 for this crate of crosses. And you put one on and you wear it. And if anybody mentioned, "Hey, that's interesting. That's not jewelry. That's a wooden cross," he'd give them the cross. And everybody else, I've seen him do it a number of times. "Oh, no, I couldn't take it. I got a crate of them at the house. I'm giving them away. If somebody asks you about this cross, you give it to them. And then come get another one for me if you want. But just do that." And I have been at least 10 different places where somebody remarked on that cross and he gave them that cross. You know, I tried it. I think it may be different when you're 80 than when you're 50. Because when I was in the grocery store, it just irritated at me for wearing this cross that wasn't jewelry. Whereas my father, he'd make friends and meet people and whatnot. And I was getting permission to tell the story, and he said, "It starts with a smile. It starts with a smile. When you smile at somebody on purpose, you're just not giggling at a private joke, but when you smile at someone, they know you're a Christian. They can read your thoughts in that smile. They know you're a Christian." When we were moving up here, Dad had moved up here last May. Alicia had started working the previous November, and as soon as the kids were graduating, I drove them up here. Our friend Mike drove the U-Haul. I stopped in the town that we had first lived in, outside of Dallas, called Wiley. I hadn't been in that Walmart in several years. I went into that Walmart, and there was this girl, I'm pretty sure she was from India, and she was checking out the snacks I was getting for the kids on the drive up here. And she kept looking at me and smiling. She was flirting with me. And she finally looked at me and she said, "Your father gave me this cross." I had been in that Walmart in at least 2 years, probably 3. But she remembered my father and that I was standing next to him while they talked about Jesus. And I'm confident that she was not a Christian. She called herself a Hindu. But she wore that cross and she wore it every day to work for 3 years. On the off chance that she could tell somebody about it. You know, she only worked up the courage to tell me. But you can see that changed somebody's life. That 18-cent cross made an impact on who that woman was going to be and how she understood the things of the Spirit and everything else. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be there. And you don't have to do it well. One of the things that Alicia and I have said throughout our relationship, being in ministry, you wind up applying for different jobs and getting side work and all this kind of stuff. You go to a lot of job interviews. And we started telling each other a long time ago, you know, if it turns out that this is not the job you want, you don't just walk out. This is practice for the job you're going to get. Okay, I would say that same thing to you about bearing witness. Somebody at school, somebody at work, a cop who's writing you a ticket. Hey, I've been there before. That's a good time to talk about Jesus. But you know, just in the middle of your life, just sharing that little bit of yourself, and it may not go well. But you know what? If you keep at it, one of them will go well. And so every conversation you have about Christ is getting you one conversation closer to the one that makes that connection. You know? So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it right. You don't have to do it well. It can be a disaster sometimes, and you go ahead and get a ticket. Maybe a higher ticket because you talked about Jesus. But you know what? That's one step closer to where you make a connection. And so while you and I value our week by how many sales contacts we made, or how many widgets we got produced, or how much homework we wrote, you know how God's keeping score with your week. Well, how many times you made that connection with somebody? That's what God did. He didn't care about any of the rest of it. He cares for sparrow falls, but he's keeping track of how you and I speak for Jesus Christ. All right? And I've done my deal for today. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to need to get up and talk some more about Jesus. I may need to talk about Jesus on the way home from here. So, amen. Thanks be to God.